Chef Jess here from Vegan Gastronomy, and today we're going to be showing you how to make choux pastry. What is choux pastry? Choux pastry is what's used in classical eclairs. So we are making some fancy French pastries today, and it's a lot easier than you think. We're using a new product which we've just launched called PANACEGG. So what is PANACEGG? PANACEGG is a whole egg replacer that's going to be replacing the eggs in this recipe today. So up here on this slide, just up here, you ever see that traditionally eggs have so many functions. 8 major functions in fact when we're thinking about baking. In my pastry class, I have students asking all the time, what is the one solution that we can use in the vegan world? Unfortunately, there is not one. And whilst we do teach many different solutions in the plant-based and vegan world, usually ingredients used to replace eggs are only going to replace one, and if you're lucky, maybe 2 of the functions. So we were looking for a replacement which would be an all-in-one, and that's where PANACEGG really comes in. So we don't have to worry about adding so many different ingredients to replace all those functions. We just have the one here that's going to do it all for us. It truly is the panacea for the vegan chef. Okay, so let's go over some of the things that we're going to need to make this recipe today. So I do like to use my KitchenAid. This is my stand-up mixer that we use in the kitchen. I have the bowl here and also a paddle or leaf attachment that we'll be using. You're going to need 2 baking trays. In addition to that, we have 2 pieces of parchment paper or baking paper, which I have lined with a guide where we're going to be piping our choux pastry, our eclairs onto. In addition to that, we also have, I've got a disposable piping bag here fitted with a nozzle. This is a star tip nozzle. Some water. Okay. We have some plain flour here or all-purpose flour. We also have some vegan margarine. This is a pastry margarine. You can use any type of margarine that you like though. I have some unsweetened plant milk. We have some prepared PANACEGG. And then I also have here, this is going to be an egg wash. It's just PANACEGG with a little bit of plant milk, which I'm going to be brushing over. Okay, so let's get started making. Just to let you guys know out there, all you chefs out there, this is actually the traditional way of making a choux pastry. All we're doing is using the PANACEGG as a replacement. So let's get started. So to begin with, we're going to be putting our water and our margarine into a saucepan. Now, because choux pastry is an emulsion, we need to slowly melt our butter. We don't want to be too fast in doing that. So I'm just going to put this over a medium heat. I'm going to let that melt down. Whilst we're waiting, I have my flour, which I've measured out, into a sieve, and we're going to just sift that so we make sure that there's no lumps whatsoever. And don't forget to add your salt as well into your mixture for the water and the butter. It's about a teaspoon here. Okay, so now our butter has melted over that nice low heat. I'm going to just put this up, and we want to bring it to a rolling boil. Now our mixture is rapidly boiling. We want to pour it straight over our bowl with the flour. Give this a mix. And now we are creating what's called a panada. Once all that flour has been incorporated, we want to return it back to our saucepan. And this is where we start drying out our dough a little bit. And you'll notice when it's ready, it will start coming away from the sides, just like a traditional choux pastry. Once our dough is at the consistency that we're looking for, we want to pop it into our bowl for our stand-up mixer. And we need to pop it with our leaf attachment or our paddle attachment. And we want to mix this on low for about 2 minutes, and this is just going to cool it down a little bit. So the reason we want to cool down our dough a little bit is if we put our PANACEGG product directly in there, it's actually going to start cooking it. So we need to cool it down a little bit. So we're going to stop that from happening. So otherwise we'll have lots of big clumps in our dough. Now we've allowed this to mix for a couple of minutes. We're going to pour in our PANACEGG prepared mixture. So once we put the PANACEGG mixture in there, we want everything to be incorporated and nice and homogenized. If it's not picking up from the sides, just turn it off and just scrape down with your spatula so everything gets incorporated. Once our dough is nice and homogenized, I have got a little bit of plant milk here. This is just an unsweetened plant milk, and we want to add that to our mixture too. Once everything's nice and smooth, we're going to get it into our piping bag. I like to use one of these pastry scrapers. It just makes everything a lot easier. So now I've got my piping bag filled with my choux pastry. We're going to be piping out our eclairs. Now today I've decided to make little petit fours, so we're making small ones today. And I've just got a permanent marker on my parchment paper, on my baking sheet, and we've marked 5.5 centimeters with a 2 centimeter spacing. So once you have ruled this out, you want to flip it over so the marker is on the opposite facing side. And take a little bit of that dough mixture, because that's nice and sticky. And we're going to put that on our tray, and this is going to stop our paper from coming up in the oven. So just pop a little bit of that mixture on there. So now we have our baking sheets prepared. We're ready to pipe our mixture. So in the meantime, I've had my oven preheating. You're going to need it on a fan force or a vent oven setting at about 180 to 200 degrees. So that's up to you to just check and see whichever works best in your oven. Okay, so we're going to be piping these out using our guide. I like to do them on an angle. So we want to start at one edge and then keep on going down. Stop at the line and then pull and then head back. Okay. And continue. And we want to make sure that there's some spacing in between each one. We have all our eclairs piped out. You notice there's some little tips which are kind of standing up. The little points we can use. I've got some water here, and just using our fingertips, we can just press those down so they're not going to be a problem for us. So now we need to brush them with a little bit of egg wash. We're not reusing real eggs, we're using the PANACEGG again, which I've just mixed up with a little bit of plant milk. So you can see the plant milk in there. We're just going to whisk that together and just apply a really light brushing, so make sure you take off any excess, and we're just going to brush this over each one, and this is going to help prevent any major cracking that may occur in the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and brush all of these, and then we'll be ready for the oven. Okay, so now these guys are ready for the oven. I had the oven set to 180 degrees on my oven, and it's on a fan setting. It's very important that we vent as well. So we're going to open this up. We're going to put our 2 trays in. And because I don't have a vent setting on my oven, I'm just going to take a plain old baking tray and just pop that in the side. So this is going to help any steam escape, so we get a nice big puff on our choux pastry. Okay, so I'm just taking them out of the oven now. And we need to put them straight onto a cooling rack immediately afterwards, so they should come off nice and easily. Let's get them all on there. You see they're puffed up nicely, we've got a nice golden colour. Now once they're straight off the trays onto our cooling rack, we want to take each one and just prick a hole in the bottom, and that's going to allow any excess steam to come out, so they're not going to get soggy and they're not going to collapse. So just go through and put a little hole in each one. So we're letting our babies breathe. Okay, now our choux buns have cooled, it's ready to make the filling. So the filling that we're going to be making today is what's known as a diplomat cream. So it's utilizing pastry cream. If you want to learn how to make pastry cream, just click up here and you can learn how to do that too with our PANACEGG product. So I have some pastry cream here, which we're going to whip up until it's nice and soft. And then we're going to fold through some whipped cream or chantilly cream. And this is what we call a diplomat cream when we combine the two together. So all we have here, this is some plant cream. I really love using this product called Ambiente from Paratos. It's sold all over the world. And it's a little bit sweet already, so I actually haven't added anything to this. You could add a little bit of sugar and some vanilla if you want to, but we've got plenty in our pastry cream. And you can see I've whipped this up to a nice soft peak, so it's not too firm. We want it still a bit soft, so it'll be easy to pipe into our choux buns. Okay, so whipping up our pastry cream, you can see that it's set up really, really firm. So we're going to pop this into one of our bowls with a whisk attachment. Whip that up until it's nice and soft and creamy. Usually when you see vegan choux pastries out there, you don't get the whole inside like you do in a classic. So they're often cut in half and then filled. We're really making this in the classic way. This isn't trying to be a choux pastry. This is a choux pastry, guys, and it just so happens to be vegan. So let's have a look inside. I'm just going to grab one here and cut it inside so we can have a look at that hole inside. Look at that. So we've got a great big hole in there, and we're going to fill that with our delicious diplomat cream. So I've just whipped up my pastry cream, so it's nice and smooth now. So I've got my chantilly cream, my whipped cream, and basically all I'm going to do is we're going to do equal parts. So we've got one part of our pastry cream and we're going to do equal parts. So I'm going to put the other half, I'm going to fill it with this whipped cream. And then all we need to do is fold the two together. You just want to lift that up. We don't want to deflate it, and we're turning the bowl as we go. I teach a lot of these types of creams and French types of creams in my pastry course here at Vegan Gastronomy. So you've got that nice, lovely, light cream mixed with whipped cream, pastry cream and whipped cream, and that is our diplomat cream. Okay, so I'm going to put this in a piping bag now. So I've just got a disposable piping bag, and I've got a round nozzle, but it's quite small because we are piping it into these small little choux buns. So just using our pastry scraper, we're going to get that in. And we want to try not to have too many air pockets in there, so keep it nice and tight. So guys, I've got some ganache here. This is just equal parts chocolate and water. So we put the water in a saucepan, overheat until it became nice and bubbly, and then poured it over our chocolate, emulsified the two, and then put a little bit of vegan margarine. So super simple, it's just a water ganache. We're going to be using that today to put on top of our choux pastries. Okay, so taking our choux pastry, we're actually going to be putting the filling in on the bottom. So remember when we made that little incision before? I'm going to take, this is just a little cone, but you could use anything to make that hole a little bigger. We need it big enough so we can fit our nozzle in there and pipe all that lovely cream inside. There we go. So it's just popped out the top. You just want to wipe off that excess and go for the next one. So this is a nice firm cream, so don't worry about it falling out of the bottom. Okay, so I filled a few, so let's get some of that ganache on. So we want the ganache to be on the top and our hole is going to be on the bottom, okay? So just dipping into our ganache. Just shake off any excess and then just use your finger just to swipe off any excess, okay? And then straight on our baking paper. You can continue on and then you can put some little decorations on the top. decorations on while our ganache is still wet. So I've got some really dried flowers here. So I'm just going to put a few rose petals on a couple of these. Got some nice blue, the cornflower. And you definitely want to do this while your ganache is still wet. So that's it, guys. Using the PANACEGG, just click up the top and you can find it on our website, and we ship all over the world. Catch you next time. Starting in October of 2019, we'll be teaching this recipe plus hundreds of other recipes using PANACEGG, in particular in our pastry course. So we'll see you in the kitchen.